Hello guys, and welcome to our first distance e-learning math lesson. Today we're going to be doing lesson 7.5. So please take out your math journals and I want you to turn to page 240. If you did not bring home your math journal, you can just simply answer these problems on a separate sheet of paper. I will be writing out what the problems are, so feel free to answer them that way. Remember, if you have any questions while you're completing this activity, contact me. My phone number is on the e-learning instructions that I sent out, and you guys know my email, but that is also listed on the e-learning instructions as well. I will be available from 9 a.m. until 3 p.m. I will possibly answer calls and emails after that, but that'll be my working hours from 9 to 3, so please try to complete your e-learning within that time. Today we're going to be practicing multiplying mixed numbers, and what I want to do is I want to just simply review what we have been working on with multiplying fractions. So if I took, for example, 3 times 1/2, we thought of this statement as 3 groups of 1/2. So we'd write it out as 1/2 plus 1/2 plus 1/2. And so when you count that out, 1/2, 2 halves, 3 halves, you get 3 halves as your answer, which we also know we can write as 1 whole and 1 left over, so 1 and 1/2. That same process of multiplying a whole number by a fraction is going to work when we are multiplying mixed numbers. So for example, let me erase this and let me erase this and we'll try a new problem. Alright. Let's say this time I have 3 times 2 and 1/2. 3 times 2 and 1/2. We've actually practiced some of these problems in class the other day where we can make this into a mixed or an improper fraction, but we're going to look at how we can possibly multiply these the way that they are. Well, this is saying 3 groups of 2 halves. 3 groups of 2 and a half, excuse me. So 2 and a half plus 2 and a half plus 2 and a half. We know how to add mixed numbers, so this is something that we could do. Out to the side, we would just write 2 and a half 3 times, and we could add this up. So 1/2 plus 1/2 plus 1/2 is 3 halves. 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6, so we get 6 and 3 halves. Now many of you are probably saying, hey, we can't leave it like that. You are correct. We have to regroup this. So 6 and 3 halves, we regroup. We're going to take the 2 halves out of this improper fraction, which leaves us with the 1/2. We're going to put that into the whole number. So that 6 would become 7. So this 6 and 3 halves is really 7 and 1/2. Now there's also a different way besides doing repeated addition. We could multiply 3 by each one of these. So if we take 3 by 2 and 3 by 1/2, let's see what we get. So 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 1/2 is 3 halves. And that gets what we had here, 6 and 3 halves. So all we have to do is regroup this like we just practiced, which would be 7.5. So that is another way to get the same answer. You can either add them, just make sure you stack them up and add them properly, or you can multiply each digit correctly, okay? All right, so what I want you to do while I'm erasing this is on your notebooks, write out the problem 4 times 2 and 3/4. All right, why don't you pause this video and take a second to see if you can answer this. All right, hopefully you've tried this. If you didn't pause the video, again, that's not going to be good for you in the long run. We're going to have to be doing an IXL on this. We've got to make sure that we are practicing on our own before it's our turn to actually practice. So if you haven't paused the video and tried this, I really recommend doing that. But we can read this problem as 4 groups of 2 and 3/4. 4 groups of 2 and 3/4. So you could do 2 and 3/4 plus 2 and 3/4 plus 2 3/4 plus 2 3/4. Now, if you're going to write that out, make sure, if you're going to add that out, excuse me, make sure you stack them up. So 2 3/4, 2 3/4, 2 3/4. I'm running out of room. 2 3/4. All right, I'm going to have to write my answers over here because I ran out of room. Let's do these together. 3, 6, 9, 12. So that would be 12/4. And then 2, 4, 6, 8. So 8 12/4. Now we realize that this is an improper fraction, so we can't leave it like this. 4 goes into 12 3 times with none left over. So that this actually equals 3 wholes. If we already have 8 wholes, we're adding 3 wholes to that. That gives us a total of 11. So this equals 11. Okay? Now, if you tried to do this the multiplication way, just make sure you do it by each, the whole number and the fraction. You got to remember to do it by both. So 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3/4, count by 3/4 4 times, and that gives you 12/4. We just did this problem right here. 12/4 is really equal to 3 wholes, so you already had 8, so 8 and 3 makes 11. All right, let's go ahead and look at, on page 240, problem number 1. I erased this board. You please get that out. All right. Problem number 1. It says each member of the flute section of the Briarwood Elementary School band practiced for 2 3/5 hours last week. There are 5 flute players. What is the total number of hours they practiced? So part A asks us to do a number model with an unknown. So go ahead and write that in, your number model with the unknown, please. Pause this video if you need to. Hopefully you had a number model of 5 times 2 3/5. Or you could have written it as 2 3/5 times 5. As long as we have the equals with an unknown. Part B says we need to solve this 2 different ways. 2 different ways. So what would be one way to solve this? Well, treat it as 5 groups of 2 3/5. So you do 2 3/5 5 times. Alright, again, I ran out of room, so I'm going to have to do this over here. So 3/5, 6/5, 9/5, 12/5, 15/5, and 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So we get 10 15/5. Now we need to regroup this. 5 goes into 15 3 times exactly, so with no leftovers, that means it's 3 wholes. So we have 3, and then we already have 10, so 10 and 3 makes 13. So this would be one way to add it 5 times. Take 2 3/5 and add it 5 times. Another way to do it would be to multiply. So here's your second way. You take the 5 and the times 2 3/5, and you multiply it out. Make sure you do both numbers, 5 times 2 and 5 times 3/5. So 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 3/5 is 15/5. And that simplifies again, just like we did over here, to 13. Now the tough part is going to be to figure out how many minutes that is. How many minutes that is. So while I erase the board, I want you to think about how many minutes are in 1 hour. So our answer was 13 hours. For part D, Let's figure out how many minutes that is. Well, and each hour is 60 minutes, so we're going to do 60 times 13. 60 minutes times those 13 hours. So one way to do this would be just to treat this as 6 times 13 and append a 0, or you can do 16 times or 60 times 13, however you like. All right, so let's do this as 60 times 13. Our first problem, 3 times 0. Next one, 3 times 60. And then we're done with our 3, so we go to our 1. 1 times 0, and then, 10 times 0, and then 10 times 60. So 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 6 is 18, and I'm going to append 1 0 to make 180. 10 times 0 is 0, and then 10 times 60 is 600. So when I add this together, again, this board is kind of small, so we get 0, 8, and 7, so I get 780 minutes. Now if you look at part E, they want you to make that into seconds. So they want you to take 780 minutes and turn that into seconds. So part E, within each minute there are 60 seconds, so I'm going to be doing 60 times 780. Now in this one I am going to be treating this as 780 times 6, so that I can just append a 0 at the end. Since I did partial products this way, I'm going to do traditional method over here. 6 times 0 is 0. 6 times 8 is 48. So I put my 8 down here and I carry my 4. 6 times 7 is 42. Plus 4 would give me 46. So then don't forget, I need to append a 0 because it was actually 60. So I'm going to append that over here. And I get 46,800 seconds for part E. So do me a favor, pause the video please, and I want you to try numbers 2 and 3. 2 and 3. Hopefully you've tried these, so let's take a look. 3 times 3 and 2/10. I'll do one of these ways, repeated addition, and the other one multiplication. Let's do this one multiplication. Here we go. 3 times 3 is 9. And 3 times 2/10 would give me 6/10. Done. 9 and 6/10. Number 3, we had to do 2 times 7 and 7/10. So we have two groups of 7 and 7/10. 7/10 and 7/10 is 14/10. 7 and 7 makes 14. So I get 14 and 14/10. I need to regroup this though. So if I take a whole out of it, 14 minus 10/10 would leave me with 4/10. And the 14 would become 15. So 15 and 4/10. All right, if you will, look back on your e-learning instructions, find the IXL that you need to work on, and please get that IXL to 80%. Thank you.